Halo, salam kenal.
Ini orang UGM ini.
UGM.
Juga Mbak Anissa, Mbak Azrina. Juga siapa lagi nih?
Terima
Mbak
kasih,
Lintri
Mas
juga
Putu.
sudah hadir. Selamat datang. Mbak Monika.
Terima kasih, Mas Putu.
Ya. Ini saya sama Mbak Meike jadi moderator sebelahan ini. Semoga nggak bocor ya suaranya. Kalau ada mendengar suara-suara Mbak Meike, mohon di mute aja. Okay, Miss Firia, may I ask, can we stream this panel live on YouTube like the other panel before? Thank you. I don't mind, silakan. Yang lain bagaimana? Okay, so what are we waiting for? Can we start? Okay. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome here to Remarkable Symposium of Social Science 2020. I am Fauzul Haq. You guys can call me Fauzul. I'm going to be moderating the panel discussion today, and I'm pleased to become the moderator of this session today. My background is Public Relations Lecturer of UPN Veteran Yogyakarta, UPNVY, someone say. I'd like to welcome you all on behalf of the organizer Center of Southeast Asian Social Studies UGM. This topic is very interesting. Every country all over the world has been ruined by the COVID-19 pandemic, including Indonesia. This situation forced us to sharpen our agility and be more technology savvy. The era is inevitable, and this pandemic only accelerated the process of digitizing every aspect of human's life. At this session, we'll have 5 presenters that will be present their papers. Presenters is about to talk about communication and media in the digital era from various perspectives, purely, and various paradigm. Each presenters will have around 15 until 20 minutes for presentation sessions. There will be an opportunity to questions later. The question sessions is around 30 minutes and will be provided by chat box. So please, if any of you have a questions, just write it down in the chat box. Okay, I think it's very clear for the regulations. We can start from my neighborhood, Kang Asep. Welcome home, Kang Asep, virtually. Wilujeng Sumping.
Yeah, thank
Okay.
you.
Kang
I'm
Asep
actually hoping
is...
to having a breakfast with soto, but yeah, I only have cereal right now.
You're kind of homesick, right?
Yeah, it is 4 years here. So yeah, hopefully I can go back to Indonesia. Hope soon.
Okay, Kang Asep Muizuddin Muhammad Damini is a part of Center for Cultural and Media Policy Studies, University of Warwick, United Kingdom. Kang Asep will present about structure and agency in public communications. Lesson learned from COVID-19 in Indonesia. So, Kang Asep, please, the screen is yours.
Okay, thank you. So it is actually my first time using Zoom. Hopefully it is working with. It said that host disable attendee screen sharing. Could anyone help me about this screen sharing things? Okay. Can you see my screen right now?
Not yet.
Oh,
Maybe it's about to come up.
it is working?
Okay. Yeah, it's work.
Okay. So good afternoon everyone in Jogja. Good morning from here in Birmingham. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name Asep. I'm a PhD student in Media and Communication at University of Warwick. So my PhD is actually about internet and public sphere in Pondok Pesantren. But before going to Pondok Pesantren, I analyzed the Indonesian public sphere in general before to understand how that pattern of things happens in national public sphere. And it appears that the theme of Bapakisme is dominant in Indonesian public sphere. So I utilize this notion of Bapakism to observe the public communication in Instagram in the past 4 months. So what is Bapakism? I think the first thing we need to do is we need to flash back to the first establishment of Indonesia as a modern nation. We remember that there is a Sukarno, and Sukarno is compared to Suharto. Sukarno was coming from aristocrat father and Hindu Balinese mother, and then he was also well educated and wandering intellectual. He came to Cokro Aminoto, for example, and also a lot of important figures in establishing Indonesia as modern nation. And he had multiple marriage. That's why he far away from that kind of Papakism. It is problematic to have a multiple wife and have Papakism at the same time. And he also occupied by grand narrative of nationalism in that short history of Indonesia as a modern nation. He also come in early stagger of nationalism in Indonesia. So it is really different between Sukarno and Suharto if we try to understand what is Bapakism. In Suharto, we understand how he came from a small village and really humble family at the beginning. And he had military education and successful career in military as well. He really family oriented, monogamous, never have any marriage outside Ibutin. And then he has 3 decades of governance. That's why he had more time to shape the public sphere compared to Suharto. And you can see that transition from that small village, humble family, military education to national leadership led him to imagine Indonesia as a modern family, as intimate Javanese family at the same time. So that's why this notion of Bapakism is more dominant in Suharto rather than Sukarno era. So what is Bapakism? So it is actually a systematic method of Suharto to control the public sphere. And I argue that this Bapakism is actually original and underlying structure. it is still dominant until now. For example, if we understand how system of governance from national level to RT RW, it is really systematic, really microscopic, how that kind of governance go from state to family level through RT RW level. And Indonesia was imagined as intimate family. Bapak should provide all needs of children. Children should obey Suharto as Bapak Pembangunan. And this is also immersed in our aspect of society. If we understand the notion of anak buah, for example, in official level, how official duty, office environment is also imagined as family, as intimate family at the same time. And it is also interesting if I think some of us has had experience doing elementary school during Suharto era. We remember how we memorize ini Ibu Budi, ini Bapak Budi, Ibu Budi memasak di dapur, Bapak bekerja di saudara dan sebagainya. And so that kind of Bapakism is actually contextualized and immersed from the beginning of elementary school. So Shiraisi had observation in the first day of schooling in elementary school, and how students want to memorize, students immerse that kind of joy and accomplishment by following the teacher instruction. So there is no the excitement of discovery, the excitement sparked by unexpected question that inevitably arise from time to time in the classroom, despite the teacher efforts to avoid them, is quietly extinguished by being ignored as noise that lacks power to disturb the teacher discourse. So in such kind of educational environment, a student was conditioned to follow teacher instruction. Everybody has to be uniform in terms of schooling system. And it happens since the beginning of schooling. But then that kind of Bapakism was not as strong as Suharto imagined. In the last decade of Suharto governance, we can see how that monetary crisis also led to the crisis of cultural identity. So Milani Bodianta in her research showcased that cultural campaign in the end of Suharto era that try to secure and maintain Indonesian identity, and such kind of anti-Western values also immersed in this cultural campaign. We can see from this advertising on Kompas, for example, how Suharto compare Michael Jackson dance with wayang figure in Indonesia, and said that in Michael Jackson he is kaya gaya and we are rich with culture, something like this. So it is also insecurity appears here, that actually that Bapakism is not as strong as we imagine, that we also have a fragility in facing the monetary crisis and cultural identity crisis. But then 15 years later, there is a shift of cultural identity from that Bapakism to more emphasis on agency. So Paul Gellert here observed the movement of Indonesia Mengajar. So I think everybody knows Indonesia Mengajar, and he found how there is a shift from that kind of family-oriented children, obeying children, to more cosmopolitan, nostalgic, and individualist at the same time. So there is drastic shifting from the anti-Western identity to more Western-friendly identity. Optimist, Western-educated or oriented, rich and successful at the same time, but also nationalist at the same time. So Indonesia in this imagination is no longer seen as a rigid boundary, and there is an abundance possibility of mismatching identities. For example, how to become Muslim and Western oriented at the same time, how to become pious and Western educated at the same time, how to become rich and nationalist at the same time. So there is a mismatching identities happens here that makes that kind of Bapakism has been challenged in contemporary Indonesia. We also see the blurred distinction between market and politics. So young people nowadays can be a part of grassroots level movement, such as Kamisan or Me Too or something like that, or as part of oligarchy. We can see more young people going to that important public figure in political party. We also can see young people as a political actor, as are a market-oriented actor. A lot of people, YouTubers, celebgram, influencer, entrepreneur, and startup unicorn, and sometimes there is also overlap identity between political actor and actor in market. Sometimes the political actor also have entrepreneurial spirit or something like that. Political actor also has a tendency to become a celegram and influencer. So there is a kind of shift from that Bapakism to more the emergence of individual agency. So we could ask from this condition the possibilities to escape from Bapakism. Is it possible for us to really escape from that kind of Bapakism? We can see that nowadays the ideal millennial should be like this, well educated. We never see so many Indonesian well educated Ivy League, Oxbridge in 10 or 20 years ago, but nowadays more and more Indonesian youth going to top universities abroad, going back to Indonesia as young entrepreneurs, and they say that they contribute to the nation, to developing the nation. And we also should not underestimate that gap in Indonesia, because we also have a lot of underprivileged millennials nowadays. So research in Jakarta Post, for example, has shown how the struggle of poor millennial in Jakarta in facing that daily needs. So there is a huge gap between that Harvard educated young people to that young people who else do you only have $1 per day as a matter of survival. So it is really interesting to see how that gap between millennials. And I argue that there is no better way to understand that complexity than Instagram, because Instagram has shown that kind of structure versus agency. We also can see image plus narrative in caption there. And this kind of mechanism has been disrupted the structure, because in the past, structure has been dominated by state. Nowadays, the function of non-state level challenging by the capability of state in control the structure. So both state and non-state actors nowadays compared to become an agency. So there is no domination of agency anymore. There is no domination of structure anymore. Everybody want to become a active part of that structure. And in Instagram, beyond the numbers of followers, beyond the public relation practice, engagement is really matters. So I try to use these engagement things to understand how agency work in COVID-19, in which government and non-governmental actors, if we can see from successful story in other countries, should rely on two things: data transparency and quality of communication. So I try to understand whether such kind of agency things work to present that data transparency and quality of communication. I went to this post from Joko Widodo Instagram on 5th of August. 5 August is actually the peak of COVID-19 in Indonesia. Kawal COVID said that there is 116,000 plus positive COVID in 5 August. And at the time, Jokowi himself still depicted himself as a stable leader. And instead of focusing on that health crisis, he released that digital transformation strategy that covers a lot of issues, not only health issues, economic issues, something like that. So we could ask critically whether this kind of digital transformation beneficial for this kind of millennial or this kind of millennial. So this kind of digital transformation things could be raise a question about how that structure agency and how that new kind of Bapakism appears on Instagram. And it is not surprising, the responses is really not reflect that kind of crisis condition. instead of communicating, replying to that digital strategy things, the first top comments that appears on Instagram is say that I'm selling the Instagram follower, brother. It is really not related at all to that digital strategy things, and less engaged with audience. And we also can notice that Jokowi never reply to that comments from followers at all. And also keep the spirit, Mr. God bless you, and hopefully COVID will disappear from the nation. And amen. And yeah, this is really successful. Jokowi depicted himself as a stable father, as a strong father during the pandemic, but it is not show any sense of crisis at all from the audience, despite the fact that 5 August was the peak of COVID-19 in Indonesia. Compared to Ridwan Kamil, for instance, he was striking to the fact of that COVID condition in Indonesia. And it is not surprising that the audience there is more engaged. The first one is actually closely related to that comments in Jokowi section. But then the second one is really engaged. The commenters was really critical to that graphic, and the commenter suggests to do more testing in West Java. And the third comments is actually show more critical condition during pandemic, that the children feel so stressful at home, feel so bored, and they want to go back to school immediately. So that's why engagement matters. And then in that matter of times, I didn't see any significant posting from Instagram account of Ministry of Health. Instead, the last posting in the early of August is just this post at the end of July, and it is show the practice of slaughtering during Idul Adha, and it is problematic actually, because in this condition, it would be better for the Ministry of Health to suggest there is no public gathering at all. Slaughtering practice should be done in private space, something like that. But there is still such kind of promotion of public gathering in this Instagram account. So that's why the comment is like this. It's too late because the animal has become a meat skewer, and during a sexual intercourse with my wife, should I take a distance as well? It is really shameful joke in that kind of condition. And this is the third comments that show really the ambiguity of COVID-19. For example, there is a different behavior in her close family about COVID. Her mother-in-law don't want to meet her, but her mother still want to meet her. How compared to Idul Fitri, the government didn't ban any traveling at all. Instead, in Idul Adha, the peak was higher than Idul Fitri periods. And there is a notion that there is no power without Allah. And we have to see how such kind of agency also shifting from this comment as well. But in Kawal COVID, it is more directly
you have
to that
3 minutes
current
left.
condition. So yeah, okay, yeah, it is almost finished. So that's why the audience here is really engaged. Is there an explanation from admin why the test seems so stagnant? And it is stagnant. So this is show the critical condition. This is also show the criticism to the data, and more engaged to that current condition of the peak of COVID. So the conclusion is actually really simple. While multiple agencies compete on social media, the national government still relies on Bapakism. So we can see, for example, the Ministry of Health, instead of responding to that crisis, he was angry and mengeluarkan somasi to someone on Twitter regarding that kind of nama baik issue or something like that. He still see himself as a bapa, as a respectful bapa, that all children cannot criticize him, that Indonesian population cannot criticize him, despite that bad management of COVID in Indonesia. And in fact, our government has really huge budget for that public engagement on social media. So this kind of things that really problematic discussing about structural agency in the public communication during pandemic. So that's all from me. Thank you for the opportunity. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam. Thank you, Kang Asep, for your nice presentations. It's very interesting. Before we are moving forward, I would like to welcome Prof. Hermin Indahwayuni. Welcome to our session, Prof. Thank you for joining with us. Session. Prof. Hermin is head of the Center for Southeast Asian Social Studies. Welcome, Prof. Hermin. Okay. We are
Moderator.
moving forward. Hello, Prof.
Yes. My colleague, my student Lintri will present in this session,
Yes.
right? Okay.
Yes,
Okay.
Lintri Febrianti will present at this session.
Yeah. Thank
Okay.
you.
How about we're moving to Lintri directly?
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Okay.
We make it together.
Oh, wow, it's interesting. Lintri, this is your turn. So do not hesitate, please. Do your best. The screen is yours. Lintri and Prof. Hermin is writing about communication of organizations in developing a non-cash culture. A study of the Directorate General of Treasury's internal communication system in developing non-cash culture, 2017 until 2019. Okay, so Lintri, Prof. Hermin, please, the screen is yours.
Lintri send the recorded version for the
Okay.
presentation. So maybe we can wait for the committee to share
Okay.
with us. Or Mbak Lintri, do you hear me? Do you hear us? Are you joining?
Good
Yep.
afternoon.
Okay,
We have.
coming up. Thank you. Thank you, committee.
University's Department of Communication. First, I want to thank you for giving me this opportunity to present. I will be talking about the communication of organization in growing a non-cash culture as based on the case study of the internal communication system exercised by the Directorate General of Treasury in growing a non-cash culture between 2017 and 2019. A non-cash transaction has been a global issue in both developed and developing countries. In Indonesia, a non-cash use remains relatively low. Therefore, the government of Indonesia takes this issue seriously and put this issue as the integral part in preventing and eradicating corruption in Indonesia. The Ministry of Finance spearheaded this drive by assigning the Directorate General of Treasury to modernize the non-cash payment system. Unfortunately, the result has not been satisfactory, possibly because of less optimal internal communication system in growing a non-cash culture. I choose the Directorate General of Treasury because this directorate has a strategic role as the formulator and operator of non-cash transaction. Secondly, external and internal parties are involved and cause complex problems. And thirdly, this initiative was implemented not only by the Directorate General of Treasury, but also by all ministries and agencies. The Directorate General of Treasury is the most interesting office to study because it is the leading sector in implementing a non-cash culture. The study raised the problem formulation how the Directorate General of Treasury runs the internal communication system to grow a non-cash culture between 2017 and 2019. To be specific, 4 research questions were proposed. 1. What are the major ideas that underlie the policy of a non-cash culture in the Directorate General of Treasury? 2. What policies have been implemented by the Directorate General of Treasury to grow a non-cash culture? 3. what has been done by the Directorate General of Treasury to communicate the policy to grow a non-cash culture, and 4. What has been achieved by the Directorate General of Treasury and what are the existing obstacles faced in the effort to grow a non-cash culture. This study has objectives and benefits. It is expected that this study contributes to the communication studies in growing culture and enriching the study of organizational communication of government agencies in growing a new culture. This study used Carl Wick's organizational information theory. The theory states that communication in organizing information falls in 3 stages. First, enactment. It is used to see the process of defining ideas and the urgency of a non-cash culture. Second, selection. It is used to understand how all resources in an organization explore a non-cash culture through the selection process of existing regulation and policies. Third, retention. It is to see the new and revised policies and standard operating procedures to support a non-cash culture. I also use Paul Argenti's concept of internal communication to explore the process of cultural adoption. This concept states that reinforcing the internal organizational communication system is carried out through an effective internal communication program and supported by the actors involved and the right communication medium. In addition, I also use the phenomenon and essence of non-cash transaction to help build the desktop or literature review of this study. Several previous studies become the basis for determining the position of this study. Existing internal communication studies are concerned with building a culture of innovation, leadership, and crisis management. Meanwhile, the studies that focus on a non-cash culture still review the issues in economic point of view. This study analyzes the growing drive of a non-cash culture in the perspective of organizational communication. This research model was inspired by the theories presented. The study focused on the internal communication system to understand how organizations adapt to the changes in the payment transaction culture. The analysis focused on 4 main points. First, the idea of a non-cash culture. What lies behind the idea and what is the urgency and meaning? Second, policies used to grow a non-cash culture as seen from the regulatory policies issued. Third, communication policies aside from the program, the actors, and the medium used as the communication channel. Finally, the achievement and obstacle. I used the case study as the research method. I conducted the research process for 2 months from January to February 2020 at the Directorate General of Treasury, Ministry of Finance. To collect the data, I interviewed 6 officials at the Directorate of Budget Implementation, Directorate of State Treasury Management, and Directorate of Treasury System. To complete the data, I also collected documentation such as regulation, official notes, and meeting minutes, including desktop studies through books and journal. I used the Miles and Haberman's 3 stages of data analysis. Data reduction was done by summarizing, focusing on important things, and defining patterns. Then data were presented, conclusions were made, and findings were verified. I found some points in the study. First, the idea of non-cash culture. The idea of a non-cash culture is one form of mainstreaming Indonesia's non-cash culture. It is interpreted as ensuring in simplification, efficiency, security, convenience, transparency, and accountability of government spending. Second, policies. The policies to grow a non-cash culture start from the national level policy, such as government regulation and ministerial regulation, to the technical level like the Directorate General Regulation. Related to policies, there are some points to highlight. several cash restriction or limitation policies have not been adjusted, and I found no support for comprehensive standard operating procedure in implementing a non-cash culture, either through government credit card or digital payment. Third, the finding related to policy communication. Policy communication remains sporadic. It was not supported by a planned communication program, and there is no grand design for the communication program. Communication programs were carried out only by dissemination and education. As a result, it failed to cover the entire working units. So far, the dissemination was exercised only through leadership forums and conducted in the regional offices of South Sumatra and East Java. The actors are the officials at the head office of the Directorate General of Treasury. No ad hoc team was established to communicate this policy. The communication medium used. Internal medium was video conference and WhatsApp group. Also, medium used internally and externally at the same time. I found out that video conferencing tends to be one way. The participants gave less feedback because they did not have enough time to study the material in the video conference. Fourth, finding related to the achievement and obstacle. This non-cash culture has been able to reduce the use of cash supplies by 37 to 38%. In addition, restructuring 230 master accounts has resulted in 3 master accounts and several virtual accounts. After the interviews, I found out there remain internal obstacles such as insufficient understanding and no budget allocation for communication activities. As the internal obstacle, I found out that some banking system and tax system have not supported non-cash policies in the government sector. I conducted an analysis from the perspective of organizing information. First, the enactment stage. As an adaptive organization, the Directorate General of Treasury responded quickly and strategically to non-cash issues to be priority. Secondly, the selection stage. The selection process of information was done by reviewing the existing laws and regulations as the guidelines for the implementation of APBN or state budget payment. The Directorate General of Treasury carried out policy strategies through changes in regulation and policies, also the implementation of piloting payments via credit card, virtual account, and digital payment. At the retention stage, the lack of laws and regulation that grow a non-cash culture requires new policies and regulation. Analysis in the perspective of internal communication. The communication program has not covered the whole sectors. The communication was random and not comprehensive. The actors involved were not close enough in the internal communication because the communication was limited to delivering direction and instruction from the central to the regional government. Communication via video conferencing was not followed by intensive face-to-face communication. To make it worse, the transfer of knowledge that was not optimal has resulted in inadequate organizational understanding of non-cash culture. I also found that the budget allocation for communication activities remains inadequate. Externally, the banking and taxation system have not fully supported the non-cash policies in the government sector. On the basis of finding and analysis, I conclude that first, the effort to adopt the idea of a non-cash culture in organization require comprehensive regulatory policies, massive and planned communication of policies, and the role of actors. To respond to this issue, Indonesia requires a comprehensive system transformation technological development so as to protect people from abuse non-cash transaction. Second, the regulatory policy use has been comprehensive, but the cash restriction policy remains lenient. Worse, no comprehensive standard operating procedures support the existing policies. Third, policy communication has not been optimal and relies more on the impact of top-down policies. Fourth, less understanding of the organization in non-cash transaction becomes the most difficult obstacle. It is expected that the communication programs and reshaping the role of leadership function will help grow a non-cash culture. To help the Directorate General of Treasury and other government agencies to adopt a non-cash culture, I propose some suggestions. First, it is necessary to form an ad hoc team to define the idea of a non-cash culture to make sure that the roles, function, duties, and responsibilities of each team member are well defined. Second, cash restriction policies should be readjusted. Third, a comprehensive SOP is a must to support the implementation of a non-cash culture. Fourth, it is also necessary to formulate a grand design for communication strategies by evaluating the communication program implemented. Fifth, it needs reshaping the roles and function of the vertical agency heads as the actors for a non-cash culture. Last but not least, optimizing the transfer of knowledge through internalization activities is worth doing. I believe that this study has limitations both in terms of specific objects and findings, the ones that might not comprehensively describe the process of growing a non-cash culture. I suggest that the future study should explore communication with external parties to grow a non-cash culture. The study should also analyze the user response to assess the success rate of an implemented non-cash culture. I do hope that the study can help the Directorate General of Treasury to succeed in the effort to grow a non-cash in the future. Thank you very much for listening. I will end this presentation with a quote. Changes are inevitable and not always controllable. What can be controlled is how you manage, react to, and work through the change process. Let's change.
Okay, well, such good presentation for Lintri. Now, it shows how difficult to avoid the digitalization era. Even the payment system of state budget or APBN is went digital by now. Thank you, Dr. Lintri, also Prof. Herman. Interesting topic. Let me remind you before we are moving forward. The audience could directly write it down your questions to the chat box during the presentation for the from the presenters. It's okay. Just give the presenters your best question. And don't forget to mention the name, the presenter's name, those presenters that you pointed to answer your question. Next, after Kang Asep, Mbak Lintri, Hermin, I'm gonna moving to Azrina Sabila and Anissa Purwaningrum of Universitas Gadjah Mada. Azrina, also Anissa, create the paper about the social system in Indonesia, the strikes of the COVID-19 in the digital era. So Azrina, please, the screen is yours.
Thank you very much, Mr. Fauzul. I will share the screen. So, is it visible? Can you see my screen?
Yes, I can say it clearly.
Okay, thank you very much. I think I'm going to start right now. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much for this opportunity. My name is Azrina Sabila, and hereby I will present the article that has been written by me, Azrina Sabila, and my partner, my co-author Anissa Purwaningrum from Gajah Mada University. The title of this article is about the social system in Indonesia, the strikes of COVID-19 in the digital era. So in this presentation, we will explain in 4 phases. There is introduction, literature review, method, and result. Okay, first the introduction. So as we know, Indonesia as independent country has a real dark history during colonialism. These dark times cannot be separated from Indonesia at this time, even though the direct influence is only in the previous generation, but we will see and discuss about how it will affect to our current generation too. So globalization contributes to be the one of the factors that influence changes in social system. One of them is also about the post-colonialism, because media globalization is a complex collection of many modern changes like cultural, economic, communication, and also institutional. So since the first COVID-19 case was discovered in Indonesia, the government has appealed to people to reduce mobility from one place to another place. So this is regulated from the PSBB regulation, or in the Peraturan Pemerintah number 21 year of 2020 concerning about large-scale social restriction. So in here, the public and private employees are ordered to work from home. Not only that, but all activities outside must go through online activities. The condition is getting worse as making the government also called for school to be closed. The teaching learning process is done online too. Herein lies the gap in society increasingly visible. So not everyone in the countryside is able to buy an internet quota in the midst of COVID-19 crisis. And not all have the technology to support the online education learning process. Therefore, we would like to discuss about our research questions. The first one is the general similarities and differences in the social condition in Indonesia by its historical background. And the second one is the social condition and communication process in Indonesia during the COVID-19 in the digital age. So this is our literature review. The first one is about history and mentality. It's about the history and mentality, as we know that the remnants pass to the current social systems. It could be discussed in the discipline of sociology as we look from the sociology view too. As the colonial epoch, for better and worse, profoundly affected education, language, geographic borders, religions, governmental structures, and cultural values that are carried forward to the present and will continue to be carried forward in the future. It is said by the Madison in the previous research in 2012. So we think that it is also can be discussed by the concept of connected histories by Sanjay Subrahmanyam. So the second one is about the change in the social system. People behavior is influenced by social norms, what they perceive, what others are doing, or what they think that others approve or disapprove of. This is, we think from the PSBB situation in Indonesia about all the activities gone online. So everyone must do everything online too, as the society do that. So because we will focus on the learning or on the school online case. So we think that it's about how we learn or we perceive about the technology, because learning is a change in behavior, which is the process of actively changing behavior, the process of reacting to all situations that exist around the individual, the process directed at a goal, the process of acting through various experiences, the process of seeing, observing, and understand something that is learned. It is quoted from Ngalim, 1996. And then the last one is about digitalization. It's according to APJI in Indonesia in 2018, internet user penetration is 171.17 million population of the total of Indonesian population of 264.16 million people, or around 64.8%. It's actually the number of penetration in Indonesia is still low, so we think that it also affecting on how we perceive to the online learning, to the digitalization, especially during this COVID-19 pandemic. Because all of those online interaction is also affected by this penetration of internet, and also affected by the number of internet distribution in Indonesia. Our method of this article is study literature. We will see from another research before from print and electronic media, books, and journal. And the data reduced, we observe and select data according to the theme, and the theme we choose, like the mentioned before, is from the communication and media. And then the analysis of the literature review includes data collection. So this is our result of our article writing. The first one is, however, we think that history shapes the character of the citizen of a nation. This mentality should have been lost since the invader left, but in fact, this mentality is still inherent in us. The post-colonial history has a strong influence on how Indonesians think, even though that affects the previous generation directly, but it also deprived in the current social system. During this pandemic that caused people to be agile, we need to be more agile and adjust to the society, which is do everything online. Despite the political, economic, or other consideration, Indonesia responded readily to the COVID-19 pandemic. It should be an evaluation on how Indonesians think about risk management. We also quote from the Wittrock 1998, argues that argues about how historical background depicted in how the current condition of a nation. So during this pandemic that caused people to be agile that I already mentioned before, it's about the risk management of how Indonesian face to the current condition. And then the post-colonial, however, is not only missing from sociological understanding. And so we thought that this will make also feeling inferior in the society. Feeling inferior on facing the pandemic situation cause people to be depressed. A pandemic like COVID-19 can result in increased mental burden to marginalized or low-income people via socioeconomic disadvantage. And it is said by the previous research about how this something like pandemic, it will cause a disadvantage like job insecurity, housing instability, discrimination, food insecurity, and so on. So the change of the social system in this pandemic that differs from the post-colonial era is that the spirit of independence from colonialism and inability of being independent, as this pandemic caused depression due to the lack of sources, a social capital of Indonesia, people could help one another. So we thought that this is about how the COVID-19, we could say it's like colonialism of Indonesia in Indonesia, because it makes us all the society cannot do anything and we are forced to do something new. So we need to be agile to work more for facing this pandemic. And then our second research question is about the social condition and communication process in Indonesia during the COVID-19 in digital era. So coronavirus coronavirus disease or COVID-19 until now is still being a global worry, and it also affecting not only economic but also education sector. The distant learning method or learning from home becomes a new learning method during an unresolved crisis. This situation makes the need for technology for EdTech very urgent. Educational institutions, including for students, teachers, and parents, are forced to be literate in digital technology. So, we thought that the internet infrastructure in Indonesia is still centered on Java as the most populated island. That affects the skill of educators in operating digital technology through the internet globalization, penetrates the territorial boundaries of a country. Even someone can communicate with others without being bound by time and space. But we, as the previous research before, that it's still inequality for the internet distribution in Indonesia and also the media literacy in Indonesia. So, but we see from the social capital that is mentioned before, that it is also can see from the media, the people of media in helping each other. On March 2020, 24th, the first content was published with the hashtag Aman di Rumah, as well as the launch of the hashtag Media Lawan COVID-19. The literacy condition of Indonesia could affect the communication process during this pandemic, as it is more intensive to communicate through media. There should be an effort to increase the literacy condition, because we think that a lot of people are using internet, but not a lot of people are really good at literacy. So it needs to be increasing the literacy condition. So our conclusion is that Indonesia are facing a transformation from the previous normal and to the new normal, especially in digital communication and also in online learning. And this transformation should be, we should think more about the research about this transformation. And the national development of a nation is, however, reflected from its literacy condition, because literature is the main part of us as the main part of development too, to be used in any kind of relations. But verbally or non-verbally, written or spoken, or even virtually or physically, we use literature as our foundation in information exchange. By the time of the information technology increasing and keep innovating, the essence of communication and social process itself will not extinct, but even developing instead. So that is all about our articles. We would like to say thank you. Terima kasih.
You are very welcome. Sama-sama, Azrina. Thank you for your good presentations. So interesting how the technology have changes all of us in every aspect of our lives. My students are become braver when talk through the social media technology. Then they face me in the classroom. It's very common. It's very common issues, I think, for nowadays. Thank you, Azrina. Okay, we're moving to the next presenters. Mbak Rahayu, also Mbak Monica Freddy, Mbak Monica Freddy Aprilia.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Fauzul.
Sama-sama,
You
Mbak
can,
Monica.
yeah.
Okay.
The Aprilia. Yeah, thank you. You can call me Monica.
Okay. Mbak Monica is from Communication Studies, Amikom University Yogyakarta. So Mbak Rahayu is from Department of Communication Science of UGM. They will take us to talk about Indonesian women combating misinformation, context, and intensity. Wow. Very good topic. Please, Mbak Monica.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Fauzul, for the time. Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for the time and opportunity given to us. And this research actually a collaboration between Mrs. Rahayu, my lecturer when I was in Gajah Mada University, and me myself, Monica. Okay. Okay, I will share my screen first. Oh, wait. entitled Indonesia
I think we have a problem. Okay. Oh. Oh, I think Mbak Monica is getting out of this room. That's so. Committee, can you confirm it? Okay. Mbak Monica.
Hello there. I'm sorry for the
Hello.
technical problems here. I don't know
Ah,
why, because the previous presentation's all right, but I don't know what happened with my signal or my Wi-Fi.
it's okay.
Okay.
You can carry on. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Fauzul. Wait.
I'm about to shut you down, but you can carry on.
Okay.
Okay, can you
Okay. The research
say that?
entitled Indonesian Women Combating Misinformation, Context and Sincerity, and the misinformation in WhatsApp group. Hello? Do you hear me?
I do.
Okay. I hope this can move slow. Okay.
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 Cool.
Before I start my presentation, I will say that this research is still ongoing. So we need a lot of your insights to our research. And then this research actually under the umbrella research of WhatsApp group and digital literacy among Indonesian women conducted by Mrs. Novi Kurnia. Okay, what about the background actually? So I'm so sure that you are the user of social media. Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp, right? And if we talk about the numbers of social media users in Indonesia is around 160 million or 59% of the total population in Indonesia, right? And Indonesia actually in the third position, the country with the most penetration of social media after China and India. Average amount of the time per day spent using social media is 3.26 hours per day. Internet user is 10.1, above the worldwide average of only 8.6. That this data shows that how Indonesian people are classified as intense in using social media. And the most used social media in Indonesia is WhatsApp. So, however, Indonesia is less concerned about the spread of misinformation and hoax. Not even our country, not even included in 36 countries that are concerned about misinformation and hoax. This lack of concern for real and fake on the internet indicates that we have limitation in digital literacy, especially in only also the messages itself. So this competence, a person will be able to question the source of the information, the motive of making the message and circulating the information, also the correctness of the message. Okay, The previous studies we use there are two previous studies. First is from Mrs. Ilahi, 2018. She said that when they got misinformation. Okay, it happens when in Jakarta there was misinformation about children kidnapping, and it spread it everywhere and makes many mothers overwhelmed. And then the second is research from Mrs. Novi Kurnia in 2020 that stated Indonesian women lack of this critical competence. Okay, so what about the research question? Okay, this is our research question. How do Indonesian women respond to misinformation in WhatsApp groups? Okay, and the goals of the research are first to identify women responses to misinformation in WhatsApp group, and second is to explain factors which determine the responses and to what extent these factors third and patent. Okay, the first is from Liu 2017 that describe what is misinformation actually. Misinformation is an umbrella term for false and inaccurate information circulating on social media. You can call it urban legends, like legenda something, and then we have rumors or gossip, yes, fake news, berita palsu, and then ujaran kebencian, and cyberbullying. Then misinformation has been shown to spark hostility and violence. That's the problem. And second is elaboration likelihood model, ELM. Okay, this model explains that elaboration is the key that determines the information processing model taken by a person to then form or change attitudes. So someone with high level of involvement in message will process information centrally, central root, and someone with a low level of involvement will process information peripherally. That's what ELM said. And the last theory we use is cognitive efforts. Cognitive efforts that related to digital literacy as 5, such as family groups. Maybe you have, maybe you join to, and then work, related to work, and maybe school alumni. 50 women with an estimated margin error of under plus minus % at the level of confidence at 95%. The cities sample are Banda Aceh, Jakarta, Yogyakarta, Makassar, and Jayapura. Those are head cities in 5 main provinces in Indonesia. The data was processed with SPSS and used ANOVA Analytic. So how is the result and the main findings? I hope you are interested. This is the profile. The age of respondents, you can see in my screen. The highest number of age of respondents are in 23 to 30 is 30 to 40 years old, 31%, and the last one is 41 to 58 years old, 28%. These are our profile of wife is dominated. 27% from 1,250 respondents. 27% housewife. So they taking care of the family, they taking care of the children, not working in office or entrepreneurs. And the second, after housewife, we have a private employee, 27%, 254 respondents. And the third place are public servant and entrepreneur. And okay, and in the fifth place, we have teacher and lecturer, 12%, and other 10%, freelance 0.4%, and military police, there are only one respondent. Okay, so I will highlight to this professional background, housewife is dominated. Okay, what about the educational background? Okay, we have this undergraduate is dominated 400. This is the dominant, okay, undergraduate, and the second one is senior high school, 342, and then graduate, 157, and we have vocational, 152, and then junior high school, doctoral, and the last one is primary school. So the dominated one is undergraduate. So the next one, this is our finding. So actually, what group that receives the most misinformation? So our respondents tell this. You can see it. It's very, very distinctive. The highest one. Which is junior
Miss
high
Monica,
school.
I beg
Yes.
your pardon.
Yep.
think you have 5 minutes left.
Oh, okay. Thank
Okay.
you.
And
Is there any problem with my
yes,
connection?
your presentation doesn't show up, honestly.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
What's wrong?
you're about to show your slide, right?
Yes.
Yeah, the slide doesn't show up. You can
Okay, wait,
try it
wait.
one more time.
Okay, sorry, Mr. Fauzul.
It's okay.
Why didn't mention earlier?
No, I just like how you talk.
No. It's because I already made. Okay, wait. Share screen. Oh, maybe because I left.
Yeah. Probably because you left.
Yes, I know.
Uh,
So can
now
you
the
see it
screen
now?
showing. Yes, clearly.
Okay. So what slide? Sorry for the technical problems.
That's cool.
Okay. This is the late. Oh, sorry. Okay. WhatsApp group that receives the most misinformation. So we have this is the highest, the most distinctive one. You can see it, friend or school alumni, 49.
Okay, I think Miss Monica is getting out of the screen again. So we are waiting for her till 2:55 p.m. and then ask her to do the presentation quickly. If she doesn't show up, sadly have to move forward to the last presenter, I think. Is that cool for everyone? Or the committee maybe have a decision. We're about to finish this session in 3:30 p.m. So I think
Yes, I think you can continue the session, moderator.
okay.
We don't have any much time.
Yeah,
I'm
Monica
sorry,
is
this is the second
back.
time. I hope your patience here. Oh, okay, I will make it shorter. So
Okay, it's okay.
no be no
I'm glad
more
you're back.
problems. Okay, okay.
Okay. Yeah, we still have a time. So I'll give you an extra
Thank you
minute.
so much. Thank you
Don't
so much,
worry.
Mr. Fauzo. Okay, okay. I will next to next slide. Move to next slide. Okay, this is
Okay.
the responses to misinformation. Uh, this is one I want to talk about. There are five various respondents in responding to misinformation on WhatsApp group. So there are to ignore. So when somebody just have misinformation, but they don't read, they don't process, they just ignore it, or maybe they delete it. And the second one is to give recommendation to verify. So this one, this response is belongs to critical competence. Right? What I said before, to give recommendation to verify, there are 25.5%. So you have any fact checker websites, but you still have a doubt in your mind about this information. And the third, we have to verify, there are 16.6%. To verify is when you got some misinformation in WhatsApp groups, and then you really sure that this is a misinformation, and then you make it clear about it. And then sometimes you will give some links or news in websites to say that this misinformation is untrue. Okay. And the fourth place, we have to counter. The counter is when you, okay, this is not true. Just say this is not true. There are 10.2%. And the last one is to leave the group. It's very impolite and very rude. Just leave the group. You are disagree what they said, you are disagree what the misinformation, and just you leave the group. These are the way respondents respond to misinformation on WhatsApp group. Okay, this is the factors of the way on misinformation responses. Uh, okay, in the left shift, we have a factor. In the left column, we have factor. They are age, education, professional background, job category, and living area. And this go to the right. They are to ignore, to give recommendation, to verify, and to counter and leave the group. So what is the relation about this? We will look at these various responses. Is there any relations in this part? Okay, because in each factor, all of them are not significant, so we will skip to education,
Okay,
professional
Mbak Monica,
background,
3 minutes
yes,
left. I have to
okay,
remind you.
job
Okay.
category, and living area. Okay, there are only 4 factors. In educational factors, you can see to give recommendation to verify and to verify only, because there are only 3 way that belong to critical competence. So we can see that undergraduate, graduate, and doctoral are the highest. Okay, so education factor to see, to give recommendation to verify and to verify. To give recommendation to verify, this profession really needs you to process the message and deliver the truth. So I think because teacher and lecturer need digital literacy to give verification. And job category factor, domestic and public. So public, we have 29% and to give recommendation to verify, and 79.7% in to verify. It means that when you meet many people, when you work outside, you meet many people and you give some knowledge and gain some digital literacy. So you can difference that this is misinformation. To ignore Jakarta.
Okay.
This is the 3rd time I left the room. May I? Okay, this is the last slide. This is conclusion.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, so the second conclusions is responses to misinformation are influenced by education, professional background, job category, and living area, like what I mentioned before. And the findings on the study supports the LM theory and the process of contribution and digital literacy in providing critical responses in giving recommendation to verify and to verify. I think that's all. Thank you so much. I'm so sorry for the technical problems.
You are forgiven.
Okay, that's all. Thank you.
Okay,
Have a
Miss
good day.
Monica. Wow, it's a mind-blowing finding. I think my wife is on 10% of them to counter the misinformation. She's so struggle with it. Yeah, as we know, the WhatsApp group is, what can I say, it's very unique. You can find all the type of people, the weirdest, the most stubborn, and etc. It's kind of challenging for us to face this situation. As Miss Monica mentioned before, that some of the people choose to ignore it, some of the people choose to counter, some of people choose to leave the group. It's all on
Yeah.
you.
That will
Yeah.
be our discussion. Why people tend to ignore? Why? Yeah. Maybe we can discuss it later.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because many women here, I saw you.
Yeah, it's very interesting. Miss Monica, thank you.
You're welcome,
I'm
Mr.
moving
Fauzul.
forward to our last but not least speakers. Here we go. Mr. Bondan Trihadi Magatian and Miss Firya Purwatwin Abisono. Both of them is from Gajah Mada University. And then they will talk about Girl Over the Boys, the female audience domination through male characters in Boys of Thailand Together series. Is that a movie series?
It's a
Yes.
drama series. Yes.
Oh, I just know Marvel Studio series like Daredevil, Iron Fist. It's
That was
gonna
really
be
popular.
it's gonna be my next reference
Binge
on my
watching
list.
ya.
Yeah, I
Already on Netflix though.
Okay, both of you, your
Okay.
turn.
Let me share my screen.
Thank you.
Okay. It's my screen are shared. Hello.
Clear, 7 sound.
Okay, my screen already show on the screen.
Yes, it
The
is.
screen. Okay. Okay. Before I really kind of nervous because it's my first time and I am at the book. I'm second presenter, but I'm become the last one.
So it's getting nervous actually. Okay, Virya, let's begin our presentation.
Okay, before that, good afternoon, everyone. First of all, I want to say thank you so much for joining this panel and give us the opportunity to present our paper with the title Girl Over the Boys, the Female Audience Domination Through Male Characters in Boys Love Thailand Together, the series. Maybe some of you already knows about the Boys Love genre or maybe you rarely known about uh, gay, gay male scene, kind of like that. But nowadays, women might be interested in watching male sexual intercourse with each other is certainly not new within a popular discourse. We already know so much drama or film on or kind of movie that talk about the gay male scene and boys love. And boys love is a genre with homoerotic narratives with the theme of romantic relationship between men. So the dominant theme about the boys love is mostly about the sex or romance between men, of course. And the boys love targeted women as their audience. Through boys love, the female audience can fulfill their sexual fantasy or romantic fantasy, and it's already become a popular culture. And of course, boys love using a female gaze as their frame. Many countries already produce this genre in comics, films, and drama, and one of them is Thailand. Recently, one of the boys love most popular drama is Together. Together is the series of 2020, starring by Win and Bright, and the story is based on Thai novel with the same title by G.T. Rain and produced by GMT TV. Together the series becomes a phenomenon. Together the series become the phenomenon in the culture of boys love. The series is reached the peak of popularity on social media during the show time, and it's inspirable from the activities of their audience on social media. This makes Together not only become a trending topic in Thailand, but also top trending worldwide, especially on Twitter. If we can see this in fifth episode, Together reached the popularity increased quite rapidly. And there is interesting things between the popularity. The series drew a lot of protests from the female audience. And through Twitter, they showed a disappointment about this drama plot. They oppose some scenes that are considered irrelevant, what they read on the novel and what they see on the drama. And there are some different perspectives between the director and the audience. As I mentioned before, this novel is written by a female author. but it was directed by male director. So there is a different gaze and different perspective that causes dissatisfaction through the female audience. So much of female audience not feel unsatisfied with the drama plot and the stories of the drama. So they talk about it in Twitter by reproducing some contents which show their demand for the romantic scene on the male characters in the series. So research question is about how the female audience show their domination through interaction and story reconstruction in Twitter activities. Moreover, it will be seen how the female audience domination projected the fetish and objectification of male characters. Well, about the literature review, first, maybe I will enlighten you about the boys' love. Maybe some of you not common or rarely hear about the boys' love. Okay, boys' love is known as homoerotic narrative with theme of love, friendship, and social interaction played by men. Before boys' love, in Japan, boys' love called yaoi, and often used to discuss same-sex relationship in the context of media content or cultural products. And in general, yaoi belongs to shoujo manga category, which is synonymous with romantic story. So they tell about romantic story and that targeting a woman audience. So yaoi is usually talks about the relationship between top-bottom roles in the male homosexual partnership. So in yaoi context, if top characters always played as a dominant and tends to be masculine, and then the bottom characters will be submissive and tends to be feminine. So there's the difference, and it's called seme and UK, same as the top, UK as the bottom. But the difference between yaoi and boys' love refers to implicitly sexual or non-sexual romance and more focused on romantic relationship between men. So in the yaoi, it's talk about the explicitly sexual, and then the story of boys' love was made to fulfill the fantasy of female audience. Of course, the story was the genre was made to female audience, so the story was made must to fulfill the fantasy of the female audience. Therefore, to meet female audience expectation, boy love stories usually use the female gaze as their frame. The female gaze we use here is classical reversal, the classical male gaze position, which this gaze turns the conventional hierarchy perception upside down and creates new meaning. So if the other drama, woman objectified, sometimes objectified, but this in boys' love, male are the object. So men always become the object, and boys' love gives the space to women choose the male characters they like. Either they will choose a dominant role or they will choose a submissive role. So if another drama, they can choose only one man. Here they can choose two men. They can choose become a submissive or become dominant. It's up to the female audience. So as I mentioned before, boys love genre aims at female audience, of course, and therefore female audience who watch boys love demand a story that suits their fantasy, a story that can fulfill their imagination and their need. So by saying that, if they feel unsatisfied with the story, they can create or produce their own version, such as fan fiction, fan art, or etc. The story that they feel that it belongs to them and fulfill their hunger, fulfill their erotic needs, and so on. So with create or produce their own fashion, they transform themselves, become to active audience. They do not just quietly accept the message, but also contribute to making of new message. And as we know, social media is the right place to convey their desire, freedom, and various features offered by social media, giving them space to express the dissatisfaction. And one of the social media that mostly used then reproduce it and talk about it on the Twitter. So they create interact. They can interact with another female audience that who feel unsatisfied with this story. Okay, next about about the method, I will give it to my partner Bondan Trihadana Jutian and present it about the method. Bondan,
Okay.
time is
Okay.
yours.
Okay, thank you, Virya. So let's continue about our presentation. So our method is using ethnography by COSINET, and ethnography itself is a specific set of related ethnographic data analysis, ethical, and representational practice conduct using the social and cultural data that people share freely on the internet. So we use all the data from the internet, especially from Twitter. And there are three steps of the data collection in this method. First of all is archival data. In this step, we collect the data from our big data that served by Center of Digital Society UGM. We collect data related to the hashtag together at the series during the airing time from February until May 2020. And also we were exploring the interaction through the tweets among the audience. And the second step is elicited data. In this step, we held discussion and interview to the big fan base or influencer of BL fans. We have three informants, and they are the influencer of this field and active in Twitter. We were watching the series together in premiere and held the discussion after that. We gathered the insight and observed their behavior in real life and social media. Last, field note data. We collect all the data and arrange into the finding. We were filtering the data and make it into the note. And before we talk about our result, before we explain about our result, please look at the research design to explain the domination in this research. Okay, Virya, can you scroll it again? We use two concepts to explain the domination. They are active audience and also female gaze. The female gaze is used because of the main target of BL is women. So how this factor can affect their participation towards male character in the series. The participation itself shown through the social media activation in Twitter. And we will discuss about that in the result. Okay, we can move the slide. Okay, basically we will discuss about the two main findings in this result. The first one is eye candy as substitute of eroticism and they were craving for. And the second one is the domination is beyond the existing concept of the active audience. Okay, in this part, I will share the findings paper. And okay, now we will talk about the eye candy part. If the eye candy meets the female audience. Okay, so basically in BL, good looking face of the actors or characters is matters, since the female audience as their main target. Borislow visualized the female gaze through the aesthetic aspect rather than the eroticism, but it does not directly state that the female audience does not have sexual desire, but they also demand beautiful features and emotionally bound with the character. So when we talk about the sexual, it means the interaction that built from the bond between the characters. Together, the series is an eye candy. The good-looking character is the main attraction of the series. The visual aspect refers to the concept of gaze that closely relates to fetishism and sexuality. But that's all. The director of the series unsuccessfully shows the desire or further chemistry between the characters. The female audience just is spoiled by the character's visual, not the storyline. So let's start to the next. I will explain about our finding in the how the female audience dominating the text. In this part, we will start with the female audience disappointment about the storyline. It's already explained in the background. This series is directed by male director. There is different interpretation about the audience and the director. The audience were disappointed by the director decision. The the director decided to play safely in determining the scenes on Together. It causes the scene of Together, the series, was two bromance than a boys' love. So that's two brotherly love rather than couple love. There's no sexual things to build the chemistry between the couple. PL is soft, yes, that's true, but still, there's love story between. In addition, different plots and the story in the novel. There are girls' characters in the middle of the couple. It's nonsense in a PL stories. In here, the director shows his domination through the lack of sexual or erotic scene between the characters, which can fulfill the desire of female audience. At first, we assume that the female audience active in Twitter to join the fan base and produce alternative content to satisfy themselves. But our finding is beyond our thought. Rather than produce alternative content or text, the audience built social media activism in Twitter to protest change on the original text. They were attacking the director and other people behind the scene to responsible for the story, to be responsible for the story. So they're attacking the director, the crew for a change the storyline. We find that the director and audience have significant role in a text. The director has power to direct the story, and the audience have their authority in story representation. Okay, next. Okay, so our conclusion is there is different perception about the BL concept. But in this paper, we find that the female audience shown their domination to the male characters to the content they produce. We already find about that. But the most interesting about our finding is the fact that the female audience not only dominating the characters, but they dominating the whole story. And through this phenomenon, we know that the audience has significant role in media text production. The director has the power to the series. However, in the end, the audience also has its authority to the story representation. This paper is not only for not looking for who has the more dominant power between these two, but there is a power relation between the agencies. They, both of the director and female audience, have roles in modifying text. It can be interesting if the study extends to the deeper research interactive media according to the demand of the audience. The interactivity and freedom offered by the new media make the text not only to be consumed, but audience takes the role to the plot of the whole story. And of course, we have to also rethinking about the concept of the boys' love. Before, in every country, they have their own characteristic that can be different based on the cultural background and social on anything. There are many factors about that affect to the genre, this genre. And so that's our presentation. Let's discuss about this topic. And from this research, we find that the audience in this digital era have the big role in content industry. Like nowadays, start to become popular the interactive movie that tries to build connection between the audience and content directly to affect the story. I think this is how the content in digital era will be, and they have their own issue, such as gender issue, like what we discussed in this paper, but also there are another issue that build connection or interaction between the audience and also the content and the media content. I think that's it. Virya, do you have any addition or something that you want to share in here?
No, it's enough. Thank you. Maybe some of you wanna ask us about the question about this, because it's kind of different from the others, right?
Yes.
The other panel talk about COVID-19.
It's very heavy.
The other panels
And
talk
the big
about the
deal
COVID-19.
is the only Thai movie I know is PMAC.
Oh,
You have to explore more.
Yeah. It's interesting. Yeah.
And the point is, Together is really popular during the pandemic era. So there are a lot of audience watching because they don't have any activities during the quarantine. So this drama become very popular.
Oh, I know.
Yes.
Okay. Cool. Very well. Okay. And so the presenters have shown their own or their each presentations. If some of you have a questions, please do not be hesitate to write it down through the chat box. So far we have none of them. No question at all. Let me question every presenter. The first thing I'm gonna ask to Kang Asep. Kang Asep, you still there?
Yeah, hello.
Wah, I thought you were leaving.
No, I'm still here.
Okay, Kang Asep. We're talking about Bapaisme and how the Bapaisme tried to win digital in this digital era. For Instagram, we can see that Mr. Jokowi, Ridwan Kamil, and another actor try to being good Bapak through their contents on Instagram. I'm gonna ask you for your opinion. Is this Bapaism still related to this era? Remembering that the digital native is about to own the world, and you also showed in your presentation that there is some kind of differences between the generation before within this generation or digital native. This Bapaism will still dominant as in previous generation than this generation. Okay, can you give your opinion?
So I think if we learn from case of debate about Kartu Prakerja, for example, we can see how that notion of startup movement from young people is actually getting closer to oligarchy as well. So in reality, I think we could not escape totally to that kind of papakism, because as I show from that notion of papakism in Orde Baru, it is too strong to escape from that notion. And sometimes we also can see how that startup movement actually still related to that big oligarchs, conglomerates that have closely related to Orde Baru regime. So I think in societal level, in micro level, we can see emergence of agency, and they are potentially disrupt that kind of Bapakism. But still, in more structured level, we can see how that Bapakism is still haunting until today. That sometimes that kind of agency things should adapt to that kind of oligarchy in Bapakism and something like that. Yeah, so I think in the future, I cannot see that Indonesian could be fully human agency 100%, because still, for example, no matter well educated we are, no matter how Western oriented we are, we still facing with that basic question of kapan kawin, for example, or something like that. That kind of things makes us as agency cannot escape 100% from such issue of papakism in structural level.
Well, I couldn't agree more, because before I joined UPN Veteran Yogyakarta, I was also part of oligarchy. I worked from I worked for some private companies that maybe have a political power in Indonesia. The owner, I mean, yeah, it is hard to believe, but it is the reality. Some of us is choose to be part of oligarchy. Some of us choose part of the political movement. Especially, it is going to be hard to release ourselves from this
Yeah.
Bapaism that you talked before.
Yeah, and sometimes if we could flash back to last general election, such kind of millennials has become a gimmick for all political leaders. Even the vice president candidate Maruf Amin try so hard to showcase himself as someone who close to millennial generation.
Yes.
So yeah, you can see how that kind of Babakism is actually want to disrupt the function of agency in individual level, and I think that kind of things could lead us to more clear example and clear picture of how Indonesian identity will be in the next generation. Even right now, our Minister of Education coming from Saat level, and you can see how struggle Nadiem Makarim to disrupt that kind of innovative things in educational.
How desperate he is.
Yeah, he is really desperate. Yeah, it proven that it is not enough to have that innovative measure if we want to see deep disconnection, deep disparity, socioeconomic gap, disconnection between Java and outside Java, for example. Yeah, a lot of things that really complicated that makes that kind of Papagism remains in Indonesian public sphere.
Okay, great answer. Thank you, Kang Asep. Okay, next questions. Oh, finally, somebody asked a question. These questions came from Mbak Yuseptia Anggotawati. Oh, surprisingly, she's my friend of UPNVY. Okay, Mbak Yuseptia would like ask Mbak Monica. Mbak Monica, you still there?
Hello.
Okay.
I hope I don't have any technical problems.
Amen. Okay, there's questions for you.
Okay.
In ELM theory, the ability to elaborate can be divided into two spectrums. Elaboration ability will encourage the reproduction of arguments, while, in the other hand, low ability will lead to changes in the peripheral pulp. What are the dominant factors? What are the dominant factors that can encourage Indonesian women to respond to misinformations on the two spectrums?
Okay, let me.
Okay, for the backup, I will send you a chat privately.
Yes, please.
And read it by yourself.
Sorry. Okay, thank you, Mbak Setia. Okay, I will read it slowly. Okay, in ELM theory, the ability to elaborate can be divided into two spectrums. High elaboration ability will encourage the reproduction of arguments, while low ability will lead to change or misinformation on two spectrums. Okay, sorry, but Septia is here?
Yes, sheesh.
Okay, okay, I will try to answer, and if you not what
satisfied,
satisfied, you can give your opinion. So actually, the answer and to map the misinformation, it will implicate to the ALM too, like that. So it's not about the how we use the spectrums, but it begins from digital literacy.
Okay. Okay, cool. Mbak Septia. How about that? Okay, Mbak Monica.
Yeah.
The most interesting is.
Okay, I think I have technical problems now.
Okay, that's good. Okay, is there any another questions for you guys? If you don't have any questions, I will end this session because we're running out of time. There is a lot of to talk honestly here, especially the Together series. it's kind of a good phenomenon, I think. Okay. It's actor who use that style.
Okay.
And then how Director General of Treasuries also went with it in purpose of velocity and efficiency. Also, the social system has been changed, especially the communication aspect. from traditionally communicate to digitally communicate. It's hard for us. That's all happened extremely fast when COVID-19 strikes. Surely every changes in social system would bring some problem in the other hand. There's a noise like Kang Asep said before in Instagram. There is unreadiness from policymakers in cashless cash, and Mrs. Lintri, Mrs. Lintri brought here before, and mixed information that we have to fight, like Miss Monica said. Also, don't forget about reluctant groups that being pressure groups to the government. In any other case, during the PSBB or social restriction. Nevertheless, we have to prepare with depth, and adapt mindset to win the world in this digital era. We can being unprepared, or we can being unready. We have to prepare. So whenever the same kind of this pandemic in the future comes again, we can be more braver face it. I think that's all for me. Before we close this session, would you all please to turn on your camera? There will be a photo sessions by the committee. Okay. Anyone? Thank you all for your
Wait.
participations. Prof. Admin, thank you so much for having me.
Okay.
Thank you.
1, 2,
It's very nice to know you, Prof. Admin.
3. Okay. One more.
One more.
1, 2, 3.
Hello.
Okay.
Okay,
Hello,
guys.
Mbak Admin.
We're gonna continue.
Asep, how are you?
Yeah. I'm good. Yeah.
Success for your study.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah.
Actively participant in this SOSS 2020. Nice
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
have
I'm really
you
happy
with
to.
us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Kang Asep di
Success
atas.
for everyone.
Enggak
Ya.
win, Kang.
Ya,
Amin.
mangga. Assalamualaikum.
Panitia, terima kasih.
Salam.
Thank you, Prof. Admin.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay.